Hello and welcome to episode 69 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is October 19th, 2020. Today I'm wearing a beautiful and soft Viajante. That's one of Martina Behm's designs. I think it's one of her most popular. At least it's the most popular design for my sister because she keeps knitting those shawls like it was nothing. And I think she's probably knit at least a dozen already. And half of them she's given away and the other half she keeps wearing. And she knitted one like this for herself in different colors. And I just loved it so much that she said she would knit one for me. So Viajante is it looks like a triangular shawl, but it's a lot more than that because it's knit in the round. It's a double layer if you wear it as a shawl, but because it's knit in the round, you can wear it like a poncho. So you can actually pull it over your head like this, and you can pull it down, and you can almost use it like a pullover or if you don't have a jacket, and you can even pull this up, and then it doubles as a hat, and I just love it. And it's a lot of knitting, so I've only ever knitted twice. I think I've shown the ones that I've knit on the podcast before. But this one, my sister knit most of it. And she used two yarns. She used a lace yarn by Drachenwolle, a German hand dyer. And that's the yarn with the white and the blues. And then she used a white strand of mohair silk, and then she knit them held together. And if you knit as per the pattern, the beginning of the Viajante is knitting garter stitch, so the bit that you knit to and fro. And then once you knit in the round, you start knitting stockinette. But my sister doesn't like the garter stitch part, so usually she will either knit it in stockinette or she will do a lace pattern. But this she just knit stockinette, and I think it's because of the mohair, it doesn't roll, and because it's on the bias, so that's the beginning, and then it's lots and lots and lots of stockinette, and you keep increasing on one side and decreasing on the other, so that you get the form that it has. And then the end is in the pattern, it's just a very simple lace pattern, and I knit that with the first Viajante that I knit. I did the lace pattern that was in the pattern, but added some beads. And then with my second Viajante, I used a different lace pattern. And so for this one, I picked another lace pattern, but all my Viajante have beads in them. So the pattern is just a very simple pattern with these squares. And then I just added a few beads on these points of the diamonds, and the beads that I used they are shaped, they're not round, but they have a funny shape, so like a bit elongated. I'm not quite sure if you can really tell on the picture, but anyway, so that's the Viajante that she knit for me. And because of the mohair and because it's the yarn held double and it's a double thickness, when worn as a shawl, it's just so cozy and warm, and I think it's beautiful. I love the colors, and I love the softness of the mohair and the silk. So love it. So that's that. And then the other thing I'm wearing, you might have seen before if you've watched my previous videos when I was still knitting it. It's a jacket that's called Hitofude, and it's designed by Hiroko Fukatsu, and Hitofude in Japanese is a Japanese word for with one stroke of the brush. So if you write something and you don't lift not the brush, that's the wrong word, I think. Can't think of the proper word right now. But if you paint something and you just go in one stroke without lifting it off the paper, that's what that word means. And she chose that name because you can knit the whole jacket with one piece of yarn. So I used a yarn by Wollmeiser, and it's their lace yarn, and I had a 300-gram ball. I can't remember the yardage, but it was more than enough to knit this jacket, and so I just had 2 ends to weave in, the beginning and the end, and that was it. And everything else is just constructed in one piece, and you never ever cut the yarn, which is a very, very clever thing to do, and I think it's a beautiful jacket. It's the second time I've knit this pattern. The first time I knitted out of a DK alpaca yarn. This time it's wool in lace weight, so it's quite a difference, but you just have to check your gauge for how many stitches you cast on. The pattern has short sleeves. I wanted longer sleeves, so I cast on more stitches. And I knit it fairly long. I didn't knit up the whole ball of yarn because I was a bit afraid it might be too long and might not look good. But I'm very happy with the length that it has. And yeah, like the pattern a lot. It doesn't have buttons or anything, so sometimes I'll put a needle in just to hold it shut, but most of the time I wear it open like this. And yeah, so that's my Hitofude out of Wollmeise lace. So that's what I am wearing today. Now on to finished objects. And the thing is, I don't have a finished object. Usually when I plan my week, when I organize my knitting, I try to make sure that I finish something every week. Not only to be able to show it on the podcast, but also just to get things finished, because that's with the rather large number of projects that I'm working on simultaneously most of the time, it can get difficult to keep things organized, and sometimes things get left behind and I forget about them. So trying to finish something every week is one way of trying to stay on top of all that. And last week I forgot, and I know which project to blame for that. Yeah, so I knit a lot on one project and I knit very little on all the other projects, or not at all. But the only thing that I can show you today is a half finished object. So that's more than nothing, I thought. That's the wrong side. This is the side with the pattern. So let's do that again. This is the first of the green socks out of DK weight yarn by Opal that I'm knitting to donate to the organization helping women with ovarian cancer. And the pattern was designed by a German knitwear designer, Tanja Steinbach, especially to help this organization. You can, of course, use the pattern and knit it with any color, and you can keep the socks or do whatever you want with them. But her idea was to encourage people to knit socks to donate, and the pattern is free. So I'm not sure there's an English version, but there's a chart. So if you can read the charts, you should be able to knit this pattern. Yeah, so I finished the first sock. This is the side without the pattern. The back has a broken rib pattern, and I knit the fish lips kiss heel and my favorite star toe. So I didn't do these as per pattern, but I think that's okay. But when I continued knitting on that sock after the last video, let me just remind you, this is what the pattern looks like. So you have like one triangle on this side, and then one on this side, one on that side. Then I knit the heel, and then I continued knitting. And then when I was about to start this bit of the pattern, I got confused because I started knitting it on this side and I was a bit confused. And then I realized I made a mistake. So if you look at the sock like this, you can see it's one here, one there, one here. And instead of being here, I repeated the pattern on that side. And part of my brain knew I should have knit that part, so I wanted to continue here. But I'd already knit the whole thing, so I thought, no, I'm not going to undo this. Nobody will mind, and it could just be a design feature. So what I ended up doing is I knit 3 of those triangles before I put the heel in, and then I knit another 3 after I put the heel. And because they're not for me, even though they would fit me, but because they're for somebody, I'm sure there's somebody out there who has who needs this size and who'll be happy to get them. And yeah, so it's not quite the way it's supposed to be with 1, 2, 3 here and 1, 2, 3 there. But I thought it doesn't look too bad, and no matter what the pattern looks like, the socks will be warm, and the yarn is very beautiful. The colors are very nice, and they have enough green in them to be donated as green socks. And I decided to leave them the way they are. And I'm still debating whether or not to do the second one exactly the same, or whether to do the second sock properly, so that I would have like 1, 2, 3 patterns on the foot, which would make them a bit different. The colors will be different anyway, because looking at the sock, this bit of color should be the same as this. So probably the next sock will start with the green. So all the oranges and greens will be offset anyway. So I think it wouldn't matter if I change the pattern around. We'll see. Hopefully you'll see it. Oh, I don't know if you can see it next week, because maybe I'll just have knit the leg. Then you can see how the colors differ, but maybe not yet how the pattern is going to differ. So that's one of the socks I knit on, and I also knit on these socks, these Rödel warm socks. I did not knit on the brioche sock, and I did not knit on the 2-color sock that are also green and that are also going to be donated. But as I said, I spent most of my time with one project, so all the others didn't get a lot of work on them. But I started the second sock for this pair, so I showed you the first sock last week, and I started the second sock and I knit probably about half the foot. And yeah, so this is something that I can just knit without thinking too much. Can't really mess up that pattern. Yeah, and it's a yarn by Rödel. It's an 8-ply yarn that comes in 50-gram balls, which is the reason I do them toe up, because I always use 1 full ball of yarn for 1 sock. And yeah, and as I never know how far I'm going to get with 1 ball if I knit them top down, that's one of the rare occasions that I do knit them toe up. Otherwise, if I have enough yarn, and opal yarn always comes in 100-gram balls, and that's way more than I need for my socks, so I'm quite happy to knit those top down. So that's the socks I knit during the last week. Now, for something completely different, I'll show you the poncho that I did as a costume for the theatre. And of course I did not finish it. I meant to finish it straight away after the last video, but instead I kept pushing it off and doing other things, especially one of those knit-alongs. And I finally ended up knitting the turtleneck neck last Thursday, I think. And then I finished weaving in the ends, I think, on Saturday. And then Saturday I washed it and blocked it. And I say it's almost completely dry. It's maybe not 100% dry, but it's almost dry. But the neck is done. It's washed and blocked. And all the ends are woven in. They show like little white points, which is quite funny. But the yarn is constructed in a way that the yellow is on the outside, and inside there's this white, something. So it has quite a few white dots on the inside, but as long as they stay on the inside, that's fine. But I haven't sewn on the buttons. That's the one thing I didn't finish. You can see the buttonholes here quite clearly. So that's the next thing that I need to do when I'm done with filming. And then the poncho can be picked up and it can become a costume in the theatre of Wiesbaden. I will, as soon as I've sewn the buttons on, I will take a picture and I will post it on my Ravelry page. So if you're interested, I think the buttons are quite nice that I found So you can have a look at that there. Then I continued knitting on the grey jacket that I did not show last week because I hadn't knit on that the week before. But last week I finally started knitting the sleeve, and I got rather far with it. So this is a very plain jacket that I'm knitting out of a Filda yarn. It's, I think, about 70% acrylic and 30% wool. And I didn't finish. I knit quite a bit on the sleeve. It's almost done as my arms are fairly short. The grey part is almost done. I think I probably need maybe 4 more centimeters. And then the cuff will be knit in black because I don't have enough grey yarn to finish the whole jacket. So I'm knitting all the stockinette parts in grey, and then the cuffs will be knit in, it's not a ribbing, and I think it's a form of seat stitch, or there's another word. I'm not 100% sure what the book says, so I'll have to look at the pattern once I have the length that I need to start the cuff. And so next time I hope I'll show you what the pattern looks like, and maybe I'll know what the English term for it is then. So that's just some plain knitting that I can do in front of the TV because it's just stockinette. And I'm trying to get on with that so I can wear it as soon as possible. Then I knit one whole square on my blanket. So last week I showed you, I showed you the blue square that I knit next to the pink one, and I told you that there were 3 colors that I used to knit socks. Berlin socks is what the pattern is called, and I was lucky enough to test knit it. And I used those 3 colors, this, and this. And now I have the 3 colors in the blanket next to each other, sort of. But that's all I managed to do. And the next 3 squares that I want to do are the leftover yarns from the pullover I was wearing in the last video. So if you haven't seen that and are curious, you can go and check it out. I also only did a tiny little bit of crochet during the last week, and the only thing I managed to do is knit the last round of that piece of my Carnaby crochet along pullover. So I think this is the 3rd week I'm just showing this little piece. The first time 2 weeks ago I had done 4 rows, and then last week I'd added the other 4 rows, and now I've only added 1 round around it. But that's the black like frame that sort of squares it off, is supposed to make this line straight. It's almost straight. Now I have all the pieces for the front and back of the jumper, and now I only need to crochet the sleeves. I have no idea how long it will take me to do them, but as soon as I get them started, it's something that I can just crochet without too much thought. So the most important thing for me is to get them started, and then I can just pick it up every now and then and add a row here and add a row there, and then I should get the sleeves done. And I've decided to first finish this one and then continue with the blue jumper or cardigan. I'm probably going to make it into a jacket instead of a pullover, but I haven't crocheted the sleeves for the blue version either yet, so I still have some time to make up my mind. So that's that. Then I continued knitting on the hat that I am knitting with the Opal subscription yarn for the pattern battle that I joined, and I've now knit 10 centimeters of ribbing. And as I told you, the way the colors are striping is quite different from the way they look on a sock. But even with these many stitches, what you can see with these machine printed yarns is that the color, there is a color repeat. So this is like one color repeat, and then here's the second, and this is already, yeah, this should be the beginning of the third. So it's quite interesting that all the blue yarn is on this side, and if you turn it this way, there's no blue. So that's quite funny. But I think this is high enough. I can either turn it over like this, so I have the edge of my hat like this, or maybe I'll even turn it inwards, because now I want to knit the pattern. And oops, oh dear. Oh. So this is the pattern I want to knit. It's like these, it looks like flowers to me, but the name says, it's not a flower that the name says, it's clay. I don't know the English word for it right now. Maybe I'll look it up till next week. And I've dropped my contrast color that I'm using. So I want to knit most of those flowers with this color. It's one of the new colors by Opal, and then just add a little bit of the yellow, just as a bit of a highlight in between. But I think both the colors go really well with the yarn. So that's the plan, and as I said, this is high enough now. I'm really looking forward to starting the pattern, and I hope to be able to show you maybe one pattern repeat, or at least half a pattern repeat by next week. So you see, I always have big plans for next week. And then what do? I knit the knit along. But is there anything else? I didn't knit on the baby surprise jacket at all, even though that's something that's really easy to do at the moment. But for some reason, oh yeah, I know the reason. Because of the knit along. So the only two things that are left are the two knit alongs that I'm involved in at the moment. And usually I show my knit along last, but I think this time I'll change it around and I'll show you what I'm knitting in my knit along, and then I'll show you the Slipstravaganza last. So with my knit along with my videos and my Ravelry group, we're knitting all the patterns out of the Simple collection by Tin Can Knits. And of course, you don't have to knit all the patterns. You can just pick one or two or how many you like, and we knit them together. And last week I showed you the cowl Oats that I had finished, and I said from the leftover yarn I want to knit the mittens, fingerless mittens, with the same yarn. So it's this DK weight sock yarn by Opal, and for the cowl I used those two mohair silk yarns. And now my plan was to knit one mitten with this and one mitten with that. I started with the dark blue, and this is what I have got at the moment. So most of the patterns in the Simple collection have a mix of stockinette stitch, garter stitch and ribbing, and I think this is the only exception, because with the mitten you have stockinette on the thumb, you have the ribbing at the cuff and at the side of the mitten, but the rest is reverse stockinette. It's not garter stitch, but they do look very similar. And I think I guess the reason they used reverse stockinette instead of reverse stockinette instead of garter stitch is that the height will be the same with the ribbing and the reverse stockinette. And I've just started with the ribbing that comes up here, so I'll knit a few rounds in ribbing, and then I'll cast off, finish the thumb, and then the first mitten will be done. What I also quite like about this pattern is you knit two absolutely the same. You don't have to make sure that you knit a right and a left one, because the thumb and the ribbing are opposed to each other. Is that how you say it? And when you put the mitten on, because the thumb isn't quite on the outside of the hand, the pattern just sort of moves around, and you have more ribbing on the back of your hand than on the front. And then you can knit the same thing, but if you put them on, they will look a bit different, and they will look as if you've knit a right and a left one. I think that's a very clever idea. Yeah, so almost finished with the first one, but not quite. And now on to the last project that I'm going to show you today. And of course, it's the Slipstravaganza by Stephen West. And if you've seen my last video, you'll remember that I had started with clue 1, and I could already see how much knitting there would be until the next clue. So I was hoping that I could finish the clue before or by Thursday. So Friday, when clue 2 was supposed to drop, that I could go straight on. So that was last Monday. And after I finished filming the podcast, I received an email that said, "Hi, surprise, there's another clue coming." And I'm like, I haven't even finished section 1 yet. So last Friday, no, not last week, the week before Friday, the first clue included section 1. And then last week, Monday, we got section 2. And then last Friday, which is the official clue 2, we got section 3. So it's really a lot of knitting. And I had kind of expected it to be a lot of knitting because we have 500 grams of yarn and we have 4 weeks in which the clues appear. So I knew it wouldn't be too easy to follow along, but I never thought it would be that much. So I think I took until Wednesday to finish clue 1, Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not quite sure. And then I started knitting clue, the special clue, the extra clue, section 2, but I couldn't finish that on Thursday. So I spent half of Friday just finishing section 2. So when the third clue came, I still had to work quite a bit until I could start section 3. So I have started section 3. I've not finished it, and I'm not sure I'm going to finish it by Thursday. I could probably do it if I didn't knit on any of the other projects, but I'm just not willing to do that. I don't mind knitting on the mystery knit along more than on the other projects, but I can't just not knit on the others. And so I decided if I finish by Thursday, fine. If not, then not. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be a surprise what the next clue looks like, and it's still my decision when to open Instagram and see spoilers or not. So I'm not too worried about that. And I just want to enjoy the shawl without putting too much pressure on myself. So if you don't want to see it, look away now. I'm going to show it now. So this is section 1. But this is what I was knitting on last week. So I don't remember. I think I'd only finished like 1 or 2 or 3 of those thingies. And then I had to do that up until I had 9 on top of each other. And they form a triangle. So, and then this was section 2. So that's what the instructions said for last Monday. We picked up stitches along here and then over the top. And then that's the pattern that we knit. And that was quite a few rows and quite a few stitches. But then clue 2, section 3, we had to increase quite a lot of stitches on the first row. And now we're knitting a pattern that's similar to section 1, but different. So with this part, there were 10 rows in between those ridges. And here it's only 4 rows. And here the size of these thingies is always the same. And here the size changes. So this is wider than this, and this is even smaller. And I think the plan is, I won't tell you. I'll wait till you see it either in my shawl or probably some other podcast that you're watching, and from people who knit faster than I do or who knit less projects. Anyway, so I'm on my 3rd stripe. The section consists of 7 of these stripes. So this is my contrast color 1, and this is 2, and this is 3. And then there will be 1, and then it's 3, 2, 1, going backwards. And that's the whole section. I've put it down so you can't see anymore in case you want to keep watching. Maybe you've already turned off. But so this section is 60 rows with more than 400 stitches. So it is a lot of work. But it's going to be very nice, I think. And now I'm going to hold it up again. Sorry if you've watched, you can close your eyes again. I forgot to show you the whole thing, like an overview or something. So if I guess this is the top of the shawl, and yeah, this is what it's looking like at the moment. Okay, and I've put it down again. So that was the last project that I wanted to show you today. It's a bit in balance at the moment with what I knit on, what I didn't, but I still hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.